If you've tried church marketing before and it didn't work, I'm about to share why it didn't work. And in today's video, I'm going to give you the 3 deadly sins that I keep seeing churches commit and what you need to do instead to see massive growth, massive outreach in your community, to see more people coming in to hear the gospel and be discipled. We're going to be a little outrageous today. Get ready.
Welcome to the Best Known Church Show, where we show you how to 10x your reach with church marketing that will help you increase your impact, make more disciples, and become the cornerstone of your community again. This is for the leaders with an outrageous vision, because anything less would be an inaccurate reflection of our Creator. The ones who have unreasonable faith, because you know God works unreasonable miracles. And the ones who are relentless in the pursuit of your calling, because anything less would not make a good and faithful servant. If that's you, you're in the right place. Now, please welcome your host and guide on this journey to become the best known organization in your community, Justin Nava.
Welcome to the Best Known Church Show. My name is Justin Nava. If we have not met, I take full responsibility for that. And I am glad you're here because we're going to be talking about the things you must avoid at all costs. Look, when we take action, we want to make sure every action we take as a church aligns with where the church should go. How do we know where the church should go? That's your mission statement. Okay, so your mission statement, believe it or not, here's a little bonus training for you, is not your marketing message. All right, it is something that you preach internally and you memorize and equip eternally. It's why you exist. All right. And so if you try to market your mission statement, you're going to, this is like a little bonus here. You're going to fall flat because no one cares about your mission statement. Think about your own bank where you keep your hard-earned dollars. Do you know their mission statement? Think about your favorite restaurant. You know their mission statement? It's an internal thing. You learn it when you get employed by those places. But until then, you don't need to be blasting that everywhere because it's very internal and it won't resonate. Hey, that was just a little bonus here. What we're actually talking about is the 3 deadly sins of church marketing. And I like to use the terms deadly sins because, this is going to kill your campaign. Any campaign you're running, capital campaign, Christmas campaign, Easter campaign, anything you're trying to do, if you do the 3 things that I'm going to outline today, you will find assured crash and burn, failure. And so in the same way that we have the quote unquote 7 deadly sins, you may have them all memorized. I was reviewing them before the show and I was like, sadness. I didn't realize that was one of them. So I'm just picking 3 here. I could probably create a whole series on this, but we're just going to look at 3 of the deadly church marketing sins. And number 1, a church having a target audience is completely wrong. Here's what you need to do instead. When you choose a target audience, essentially what you're saying is, these are the people that I want to go after. These are the people that I think I can serve best. But as a church, unless you're planting, okay, if you're planting, I'll give you a pass. You can have a target audience. But as a church, you don't necessarily have a target audience. You have the people you're equipped to serve. And that a lot of churches, when they start marketing campaigns or they start revitalization efforts, and they don't really dig into who they're currently reaching out to right now, even on accident, they end up completely ignoring that group of people, ignoring their congregation, ignoring the flock that God has entrusted to them to be accountable for, and going after people that we don't even know if we can effectively serve them yet. So instead of saying we're getting older, we need a younger target audience, instead, look at who are we effectively serving right now, and then how can we, A, find more of that kind of person, or B, find a person that would fit in, again, in a discipleship-focused relationship and environment for the church, fit in with that crowd or community so they can be discipled. And then maybe over time we get those younger folks. But we're not just going after younger folks, right? We're not completely changing the church. This is what happens when you have a target audience. It can set you up for failure. And so if you're doing church marketing, if you're trying to raise awareness of your church, trying to get young people excited, but you ain't got no young people and you don't know what's going to get them excited, and they come in and they realize that you're serving a completely different demographic, that's not wrong. Okay, I've even seen it on the other side. I was talking to a church planner, this was years ago, and he said, our church is too young. We don't have any saints. We don't have any people that have, I'm the oldest one here and I'm 35. I think he said he was 35. We need older people here. And, they had planted this church and built it up to reach that younger audience. But what they realized was they were doing almost too good of a job because older folks weren't coming into the fold, and the ones that weren't sticking. So he had to change it a little bit. And we consulted with, or I consulted with them and said, okay, well, what kind of older person would want to come in a mentorship position? And he realized, while the young demographic the young target audience he planted to reach wasn't necessarily translating to the older. So he was looking for lost young souls, but also they were going to look for older, already Christian, disciple-making souls to bring in and come alongside those youngsters. And so having a target audience can set you up for failure if you don't properly recognize who you're equipped to serve. Because here's the deal. Every church is uniquely equipped to uniquely reach a unique group of people. If this was not the case, we would not be planting new churches, and every city would only have one church. And instead of working for a church and bouncing from church to church, you would just go to the same church. Everyone would come along the same church. But we plant new churches. We have separate churches because everyone is uniquely equipped to uniquely reach a unique group of people. And so step one, let's stop talking about the problem. Let's get to the solution here. Step one, you really have to sit down and look at who are we effectively serving now. All right. You could also say effectively reaching, but if you're effectively reaching someone, you probably won't be talking to me. So step number one is, who are we effectively serving now? You have unique gifts, all right? The way you preach, the way you sing, the building you're in, the class leaders you have, the environment that you create, which is very important. It speaks and it resonates and it is acceptable or even welcoming to a certain type of person, all right? And pastor, church leader, I want you to be very careful with this, because when I ask this question in consultations, oftentimes I get a laundry list of, we got all different kinds of people. We got all different walks of life, young, old, we've got married, single. Okay. The world has taught us really well how to look at differences and easily spot them. So when you examine your church, I don't want you to sit there and look at the differences and then try to pick one. You need to look at the commonalities. You may have many families and many single people, but maybe the commonality is family is important to them. All right. The single person wants to start a family, maybe comes from a good family. All right. You may have a bunch of different graphics, blue collar, white collar, but what's common about them? It might be the biblical preaching that you have, the no nonsense presentation of the gospel. All right. Don't focus on the differences. You'll get confused. And that's where other consultants will pounce and just say, oh yeah, you should take this one because that's the largest demographic in your city. Okay, if you're called to reach that demographic, great. But if not, I think a more effective solution from what we've seen is to evaluate the commonality of your congregation, to find that common core, and then you can go out and find more people like that. Okay, this even works. Side note, this isn't in my notes. This even works for older congregations. I've consulted with several. Some of them, they realize, you know what? We just need to be a place where we can continue to disciple the saints, the older folks, and teach them how to pass down their faith through their family so they can become disciple makers in their family. I've consulted with others that said, we're an older congregation, but we want young blood. Pastor wants, to bring new people. He needs to revitalize our church, and I get that. And instead of, again, looking at the differences, look at the commonalities. Okay, why is this such an older generational church? Well, what they had found out, just in the hour talking with on the call, what he had found out was that this was a place where people could have like real honest friendships, because this was coming out of the pandemic. People were still kind of scared to be around each other, but this congregation was not scared to be around each other. And I said, okay, perfect. So I said, what kind of young person would not be as scared to come out of their shell, so to speak, and be around other people? And then what kind of person would want to be in an older, more wise, more seasoned group of people? And what they realized was they were just going after youngsters to go after youngsters. But what they really wanted to do was go after the spiritually open, quote unquote, seekers. I know not a lot of pastors like that word, but the people that are seeking something, that are hungry and want to learn from someone that's older than them. Those people are out there, and they brought they brought, from the looks of it, they brought the median age down significantly. When I check in on that church, I like to check in on churches every once in a while. If you're on my radar, you know this. So look at your church, find the people that are the same, and look, overlap will happen. Okay. One of our consultants he used to say, if you shoot for the bullseye, you're gonna miss, but you're gonna hit the board somewhere. You're gonna get other targets, so to speak, even though you're aiming for a specific one. I was axe throwing with my mom over the weekend, right? And we aim for the bullseye, but you ain't gonna hit it, but maybe a couple times. And so in the same way, even though you have a set person that you are equipped to serve, there is overlap. Okay. And so if you're looking at a target audience, sometimes you're going to miss that overlap if you don't properly implement it. Okay. So instead look at who are we equipped to serve and how can we serve them the best? Because if you also, not to go back to problems, but if you also go after a target audience and maybe let's say you effectively reach them, how do you know you're going to be able to effectively serve them? How do you know when they come in, they're going to be discipled in a way that's relevant for them, understandable for them, meaningful to them, and in a way that they can take next steps? Because if you bring in a bunch of Gen Zers and you still got sign-up sheets in the back, they're not going to sign up for anything. They're not going to come to class. They're not going to. Okay, you got to know who you can effectively serve. That's why we start with this process in our Be Clear process. This is what we start every project with. It's looking at your people, it's looking at your community and crafting the perfect invite that resonates with those people. So for example, at our church, we want to make disciples who make disciples. So we are primarily focused in our church marketing outreach on people that are basically already Christian that want to open up their homes to share their faith with friends and family through like a home church. And so one of the things that we look for is what are the commonalities between all of our people. And one of the things we noticed was we're very entrepreneurial. We like starting things. We like building things up. And so that's the kind of person that we look for. Not to say that we can't serve anyone else, but if we're going to invest our dollars, if we're going to invest our time and attention, let's invest it on the people that we're best equipped to serve. And by the way, as a result, we start home groups, these people start home groups, and then they invite their friends and family. So it trickles out from there. All that to say, let me summarize it this way. When you stop chasing a target audience and actually look at who you are equipped to serve, you'll resonate with more people. And I know that's I'm teaching something that marketers don't like to teach, okay? Because target audience might work for business. I don't think it works as well for a church. So when you stop chasing a target audience and instead look at the people you're equipped to serve, first of all, you may get fewer guests, but you'll get more long-term guests because they'll be coming into a church that that can serve them, and they know that they can be served. They know they'll fit in because you have the right invite. You crafted the right message that gets their attention and brings them in versus just saying whatever they want to hear to try to get them in. You're going to have a very high churn rate or bounce rate. So if you really want to grow your church, if you want to bring new guests to church, look at who you're equipped to serve, not a target audience. And so that's deadly sin number one, target audience. Okay. Now, if you're listening to this, watching this, and you're like, I use target audience, we've got our demographic reason. There's nothing wrong with that. If it's implemented correctly and you're a young enough church. I think if you're an older church, having that mindset, unless you're just replanting, revitalizing, it might not be worth it for you. It might instead, you can have liberty with it, right? But it might also be a sin. Church marketing sin. So let me get into the next point here. And if you can't tell, by the way, I got another cold this week, right? We got two kids. One's in school, one's in daycare. The daycare kid got sick last week. Then I got sick. You probably heard it on last week's show or noticed it. And then now my daughter got sick, and then I got sick over the weekend. So we're just passing it back and forth. We love sharing. Let me get into the next point. Deadly sin number 2. Here's the reason why church marketing most likely failed your church. And I hear the same thing from pastors every week. I do consultations with lead pastors at churches, and we look at their current strategy to reach new people through marketing methods. And there's one common thing. Every call has a common problem. They tried to do it cheap, okay? And it ended up costing them more. Trying to do something cheap does not mean you're being a good steward, okay? You're going to have to pay something. You're going to have to pay money, resources, or time. Okay. And this is why we love being church, right? Because we can get free time from volunteers. Hopefully we're not just using them for free labor. Hopefully we're tying it to their spiritual growth. If not, that's a different podcast, really. But it's going to cost time. And where a lot of pastors get get caught up in the spider web, so to speak, is they look for the cheapest option. Well, we just need this. So, this one's $20 a month. So we'll do that one. Or we just need a Facebook ad. I can figure it out myself. Go in and set it up. But it ends up costing you more because it's never just $20 a month. It's $20 a month plus 20 hours of your month, right? That's an eighth of your month, if my math is right. That's gone. You don't have that time back. That is non-renewable. You can get another $20, okay? You can't get that 20 hours back, okay? You can't put that in an offering plate. And if you got volunteers that are willing to donate their time, I think that's great too. But what we also hear a lot from pastors and church leaders in our consultations is they're in trouble because the volunteers, free labor doesn't often come with best practices. So they didn't set up the website correctly. They didn't pass on the administration keys. You can't get a hold of them. God forbid something happened to them. And you've lost total access to something, right? And then we've got to use our specialists to try to get access back. So if you try to go cheap, it's actually going to cost you more. Not only is it going to cost you more time, it's going to give you more risk to your reputation. Because if you try to do something for free, let's say, for example, Google Ad Grant, and you don't know the proper way to set it up, and there's very little documentation out there on how to do it, you're going to end up doing it wrong. You're going to have a bad conversion, bad click-through, it's not even going to spend your money in the first place because you set up bad ads. And then they cancel your grant because you're not using it right? Why would they give you $10,000 a month for advertising if you're not going to use it right? And so you end up risking your reputation. If you do a bad ad, especially nowadays in 2023 towards the end, they're really cracking down on religious ads. We've had to really tiptoe around to get our Diction Ministries out there and our churches out there and our house churches out there. A lot of flags are getting waved. And if you don't set those things up right, especially as a religious organization, you could break terms on personal religious targeting, and you can get your account banned. And you can't get that back, okay? So there's a lot of trouble that could happen if you try to do it yourself or try to do it on the cheap. Let's just get AI to do it. All right. I love AI. We use AI. I bounce ideas. I was talking to someone this morning. Our copywriter uses AI just to get a different perspective on things. No problem with that. But if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to end up killing your website because it sounds like it's an AI. It doesn't sound like your church. You misrepresent your church, and you're going to miss a lot of opportunities. And speaking of opportunities, you're going to miss a lot of ministry opportunities because especially if you're a pastor or any kind of director, staff, whatever, the more time you spend behind a computer screen, the less time you're spending in front of people. Okay. And I'm not talking about Zoom calls. I'm talking about, I can't get the background on this website right, or I can't get this photo to load right, or why isn't this gradient working, or I just don't know what this Canva thing is, and it just looks like everyone else's designs. When you're the children's pastor, you're supposed to be ministering to parents and kids. Instead, you're spending all your time on Canva. Canva's a great tool. Love Canva. We use Canva too. But it is going to take your time because, you're not investing in it. So what can we do about this? How do we fix this? We don't want to be cheap, but we also don't want to break the bank, right? So how do we be good stewards without automatically choosing the cheapest option? Which, by the way, choosing the cheapest option is not good stewardship automatically, okay? Because, again, you've got to steward not only your church finances, but also your church time. And so if you go with a cheap option, but it costs the pastor 20 hours a month, that's terrible stewardship of the pastor's time. So recognize, number one, that you need to invest. You need to invest something, okay? There is no such thing as a free lunch, okay? Your website has to be hosted somewhere. Your website has to be secured somewhere. If you get it for free, you're either going to have ads show up or you have zero control, and that site could come down, or it's not branded, so people can't even tell it's you, and you get some weird website link, like go to firstbaptist.mygreatwebsites.com. Like, that's not something you should promote. You got to invest something. All right. If you're doing social media, invest in sundaysocial.tv. I love it. Go to meetsundaysocial.com. Love that platform. But you got to invest something. You can't just spend all your time spinning your wheels. In fact, even if you're a church communicator or you have a communications or marketing director, they are still working two jobs. They've got to market the church to the community, and they've got to keep the flock, the internal congregation, on the same page. Right? It would be better, instead of investing in an intern, invest in like an agency like ours, because we'll be able to do the work of 10 full-time employees. Okay. And it costs the same as an intern. You'll get more time. You mitigate risk because you're working with professionals, and you're not going to miss any opportunities because you're going to be full on doing ministry and just overseeing someone else, or something else is just getting done. You don't have to worry about graphics because you're just getting them from a company. Even if it's Sunday Social, you can just go in, what do I post today? Boom, done. I need a sermon graphic. Boom, done. Right? Love Sunday Social. Another ridiculous, this isn't even marketing, but I have a lot of churches that are like, we just use Gmail accounts. You can't administrate Gmail accounts. I know it's free, but if there's ever accusations, if there's any other legal battles, you have no way to administrate and get access to a Gmail account unless the person who owns it allows you to. Right? You're a church, but you're also a business. You need to have business class administration. So if someone leaves, you can reset their password or get old emails. You can't do that on Gmail. So you got to invest in something, right? You're investing in a church, you're investing in facilities, you're investing in salary, you're investing in like your worship service and environment. You need to invest in your marketing. A lot of people like to ask, what's a good number? I'm gonna share a simple formula. It's not definitive. You know, if I believe something is the way to do it, I will put the word definitive in front of it, like definitive church marketing method or the definitive perfect invite. But a good exercise, it's not quite, I'll give you two actually. One of them is from my friend Adam McLaughlin. I'll give you his first. I believe his was, how many heads do you have times 10? Okay, so if you've got 300 people, your marketing budget should be $30,000. Okay, and if you're a Bible Belt church, if you're around 300 people, I believe your budget's going to be close to $1 million, if not $1 million. So 30,000 out of $1 million is not a big deal. Another number you could look at, I kind of take it from the opposite side, is look at your annual budget and divide it by the number of congregants you have, and then divide that by 12. That's how much you're paying each month just to keep one person. All right. So if your budget is let's just do math here. Let's do some math here. And let's be conservative. Let's say you got a church of 300, your budget is 750,000. Divided by 300 congregants, divided by 12 months, you're spending $208 a month just to keep one person. All right. And by the way, imagine telling your congregation, look, all you got to do is give a $200 a month and we won't have any finance issues. Like, we're going to meet our budget. That's a whole different podcast. That's not my thing, though. I don't know finances. That might be a bad idea. Don't take my financial advice. But you're paying $200. So I'm just making up numbers here, but just going by what I've seen in the past. You're paying $208 just to keep one person. All right. How much more do you need to spend to bring a new person on? Nelson Searcy, author of Fusion, my favorite hospitality, first impressions, assimilation, guest ministry, whatever you want to call it, book, Fusion by Nelson Searcy, says a growing church will spend between $400 and $500 just to bring one new person in. Okay. And that's $400 to $500 on evangelism. Okay. That's not $400 to $500 on a billboard. I mean, that's on strategic evangelism outreach. Okay. Which can and should include marketing. That's basically what I do. I prefer discipleship because I think evangelism is great, but discipleship is better in the context of church. So if you're paying $200 just to keep one person, you're probably going to have to spend $400 just to get one person. All right. Now we have streamlined our process. We call it the definitive church marketing method. And with this, we're able to get that number even further down because what we do is we use marketing to scale that out. So instead of $400 to bring in one person, let's say instead of $400 evangelism outreach per person that comes in, we can get it down to about 100 because the marketing scales. We're able to scale it out to multiple people, bring in or initiate multiple relationships ahead of time, do some automation to help nurture those relationships into a next step. So you can get that number down. But the average growing church, which means some churches are paying more. So you really have to sit down and analyze, where are we putting our money where our mouth is? Are we investing more in ourselves, or are we actually investing to reach people? But the short of it is, look, when you realize that good stewardship is not always finding the cheapest option, but finding the most valuable one, you will see your outreach methods work extremely better, because you're not choosing the cheapest one. You're choosing the one that's going to work better for your church. All right. If I have my wife has to go to work, right? I work from home. But if my wife goes to work, she's in a 10-year-old car, right? I could spend $2,500 and $2,500 and $3,000 and more money. Eventually it gets to the point where it would be a better investment for us to get her a new car rather than to put $10,000 a year in this stupid old car, right? Which, by the way, a 10-year-old car should not cost that much, but here we are. So don't just automatically choose the cheapest option. It will take you more time. All right. So deadly sin number 2 is going with the cheapest option by default. And this is really tough too, because your finance committee, right? And I say this with all the love in my heart, right? That's kind of their job, right? Can we be good stewards with our money? Sometimes that does translate into, we can't afford that, so let's go with the cheapest option. There needs to be some kind of checks and balance, right? The finance committee, if it was up to the pastor, every church would be $300,000 in debt. The finance committee makes sure that doesn't happen. But at the same time, every church needs to be doing outreach, and sometimes the finance committee is the one that shuts that down. Even though I hear all the time, pastors, it's my decision. They decide to do it. They go to the finance committee, and the finance committee shuts it down. Well, guess what? The finance committee is running the church outreach, not the pastor. I think that's a problem. And so there needs to be a fine balance between the two. Let's go on to deadly sin number 3. This one's a good one. I think everyone listening to this or watching this has had this happen or is feeling this way, in their church right now. Look, I've consulted with thousands of churches to raise awareness for their church, and here's what I found. There's no plan. There's no strategy. They're scattershot. They don't know what they don't know. So they just try everything, right? An ad shows up for a software. Hey, let's try that. No one's coming in from our website. Let's try a new website. And they end up just basically swapping firearms, but they don't know how to shoot, so to speak, okay? It's like a fisherman going out, and he's going to be able to catch fish with whatever rod or reel or line you bait and you put on his hands, okay? But you give an amateur a pro rod, he ain't gonna catch nothing because he don't even know how to put bait on the hook, right? That's the extent of my fishing knowledge, even though my families are big fishermen. You got to know what you're doing. You got to have a plan. You can't just go scattershot. Yeah, you might hit a few things, but you're gonna miss a lot more. And so having a plan is going to be necessary for your church marketing outreach or marketing success. You got to have a 1, 2, 3 plan. Okay. I like 1, 2, 3. Some people got 1, 2, 3, 4. Like I said, there's no wrong answer. There's only what's the best answer. There's a reason why the definitive church marketing method has a 3-step, and then within those 3 steps, another 3 steps per trinity of trinities, so to speak, because that's just what I've seen work best for our clients. But if you are just scattershot, you're going to spend years trying something that was never going to work in the first place, but you just tried it because you thought it would work. It worked for someone else, so let me try it this way. And you waste valuable time and valuable money, in which, by the way, the time is more valuable than the money, right? You can get more money. You can't get more time. And so you waste valuable time and money on what's not working, thinking it will work because you don't have a plan. You're just trying random things. You're going to the vitamin shop and saying, I need to lose 100 pounds. Let me grab this. Let me grab this. Let me grab this. Let me grab that. That's a pretty bottle. And you're just grabbing stuff off the shelf. You don't know what's going to happen when you take all those vitamins together. You don't know what's going to happen when you take something you've never taken before. And then if something does go wrong, you don't know what to blame it on. You might stop taking the wrong vitamin and keep taking the one that's actually hurting you. And when you do this with church marketing, you end up worse than when you started, because now you've got less money. Now you've stressed yourself out with all the time you've lost. And also, by the way, speaking of finance committees, they're going to be less willing to try something else again. Okay. So number one, you got to have a plan. You got to have a roadmap. If you don't have one to start with, use the Definitive Church Marketing Method. Down below this, there's a link to get the Definitive Church website homepage framework. Okay. I know it's a mouthful, but I want to accurately describe it. I don't want to mislead anyone. And then from there, once you get that, I'll do it sends you to a training video. You can see the full Definitive Church Marketing Method. If you don't have a plan, start with that one. It was literally built for churches who are just trying random things. Okay. But you got to have a plan, and then you got to stick to the plan. You got to commit. Okay. An annual Bible reading plan. You know what separates the people that finish the Bible in a year and the people that don't is they have a plan, right? I have a plan. When I wake up, I don't make my bed. I empty the dishwasher. I make my coffee, and that's when I have my quiet time. Okay? That's my plan. If my plan gets ruined, I don't have my Bible time, right? You got to have a plan. We all have our plans, our habits, our routines, and the same thing is true with church marketing. You got to have a plan. You got to stick with it. You got to be committed. All right? And not only that, this is where a lot of churches think like, oh yeah, we're doing good. Wrong. You got to iterate on that plan. You got to go out and say, okay, what's not working of this part, or how can we do it better? Okay. We wanted to get this result. We fell a little bit short. What's the difference, and what can we do to make up that difference? All right. That's one of the benefits of having an agency like ours, because we can spot that difference and we can make those adjustments on the fly or plan them out for next month. And you just keep ministering to people, because that's all you got to worry about. So you got to have a plan. You got to stick with the plan, and you got to iterate with the plan. Okay. And that's why our Definitive Church Marketing Method right now is just an agency service, because it's got to be customized for your church. Okay. And it's got to be iterated based on the results that you see. For some churches, it works at triple church guests in 90 days. Some of them even more. Others, it's like, okay, well, this targeting strategy is not working, so let's flip the switch and try it a different way, right? Or this book isn't resonating, so let's flip the switch and try a different online guest gift. Okay. It's the Definitive Church Marketing Method because it works for every church, but it won't work for every church if you don't stick with the plan, commit to the plan, and iterate the plan. And I don't care what you do. Okay. I mean, I don't mean to sound rude, but I mean, everything works, just not everything works for everyone. So if you choose someone else's plan, another expert's plan, another agency's plan, it will work if you stick with it and do what they tell you to. And this is where this is true for anything. Any fitness coach will tell you this works, but it ain't going to work if you're going to stuff donuts in your mouth when you leave the gym, right? And the same thing is true. If you're not going to use the tools properly, it's probably not going to work for you. When you stop trying to chase the hottest new thing and stick with a proven strategy, yes, to the point where you're even bored, you will see people paying attention to you, and you will have more time for your ministry, because eventually you build a system, you build an engine that runs itself, right? Going with a guest ministry, you need to have a plan. What are you going to say when people walk in the door? Where are you going to take people? How are you going to check their kids in? Where are you going to take them after check-in? Where's the closest bathroom once you walk in? Who's going to carry what? While you're walking someone to the nursery, who's going to stand at the door then? Right? And then what time do the greeters need to leave to be, what do you call greeters when they say goodbye? Goodbyers? So longers? I don't know. What time are they going to leave the sanctuary, right? It's a lot of planning, and it's a lot of like, what's going to be in our guest gift, and what kind of forms do we need, and how do we make a pretty connect card? You're going to spend some time on that, but eventually the machine runs itself, right? The greeters show up on time. There's someone leading it now. Someone takes over the guest gifts. Once you get to a certain number, you're low, you order more. The engine runs itself, but you got to invest that time. Same thing is true with your marketing. If you set up a plan and you stick with the plan, yeah, that's going to take some time and investment. But then once you get the engine running, all you got to do is minimum maintenance on it, right? You don't got to go in there and tear the engine apart every 3 months. Just change the oil or rotate the tires or clean the catalytic converter, right? Which is something I didn't know you had to do until recently. So have a plan and stick with the plan. Okay. And this is what I'll do one more pitch here for my website framework. You can get that for free, navachurchwebsite.com. Folks will take that and they'll implement a couple things, and they won't implement all of it. Like one of the necessary items on the homepage is an online guest gift and only 2 calls to action, your primary one and the online guest gift. And they don't stick with that plan, and it ends up not working for them, not because the plan doesn't work. It's just that they didn't implement it. They didn't commit to it. They started and stopped it so they could start something else. And unfortunately, that's just kind of what it is. But there are some people that did implement it, and they're seeing some really fantastic results. Bounce rates down, click-through is up, having an online journey, nurture sequences are up as well, even using other software like Text in Church. It's really awesome. All right. Now, look, there's two kinds of pastors that are going to hear this. There's going to be action takers who we call relentless pastors, and there's going to be wait and see pastors. I had one call today, and there's nothing wrong with a call like this. In fact, many of my calls go like this. I got a call from someone, not the pastor, worker at the church, wonderful woman, looking for rebranding. And she's like, well, I don't know, it's going to have to go through some decisions. We do drag our feet on decisions. We might be able to start this beginning of next year. All right. Automatically, that's not a good fit for us. We move fast. We make decisions fast. We launch fast. We iterate fast. We are a fast moving agency. That's why some people love us. That's why some people don't want to work with us, because we're not going to spend 6 months on your logo. Okay. If you want that, great. You're going to pay for that. It's going to be a lot more expensive than we charge, but we're going to move faster. And we have certain churches that resonates with, and we can be light on our feet because they're light on their feet. That's great. Okay. But they're going to be wait and see, which means they're going to have longer time to look at more information, and nothing changes. And then in January, when the time comes around, they actually start implementing. They don't realize you don't get that tomorrow. You've got to go to meetings. You've got to do deep dives. You got to do iterations. You've got to do revisions. You've got to do approvals, right? So maybe that logo gets done by Easter. Or you can be an action taker and says, this needs to be done. This needs to be done right now. And we'll make it work whenever it happens, right? Every pastor becomes an action taker when the AC goes out, right? There's never any money in the budget until the AC goes out. Then you find that money. Okay, well, guess what? The AC is going out in the community. The community is going to hell. And we're just sitting here, just staying silent, saying, well, we'll wait and see. Let's go with the cheapest option. Let's not have a plan. That's why they're deadly sins. Because the community is dying because we're sitting here trying to spin our wheels. We're sitting here trying to make a decision, or at least what we say, a proper, wise decision, when really all we're doing is procrastinating. Really all we're doing is seeing what we can cut or sacrifice instead of what we can double down on. That's why these are the deadly sins. Chasing a target audience, right? You chase a target audience, you're going to forget the people that you have. And you forget the people that you have, when that target audience comes in, they're going to notice some depression. They're going to notice this church does not care about the people they have right now. They're just going after new people. All right. Deadly sin number 2, if you try to go cheap, it's going to cost you more in the long run. And deadly sin number 3, if you don't have a plan, basically you have a plan to fail, right? You always have a plan, I guess. But if it's not a plan to succeed, it's a plan to fail. Thank you all for watching. Appreciate you again for dealing with me and my cold that I have. But I'll be back next week. We'll go further in depth on some more of our processes so you can see what it takes to reach more people, to get more people coming into your church. And then this week, I'm excited to lead a training for a few other pastors. And I'm hoping to turn that into a course as well. We're going to workshop some things, make sure the process works. This updated process works better. And that'll be something really cool coming down the pipeline. So God bless you all. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe wherever you're watching. Go and be outrageous in your thinking. God bless.
That's going to do it for today's episode of the Best Known Church Show with Justin Nava. Be sure to subscribe to stay updated on the latest news, strategies, and resources that you need to reach 10x more people and become the best known in your community. To send us a message or leave a voicemail for Justin to be played on a future show, visit thebestknownchurchshow.com. And if you'd like to work with us so you can focus on your ministry, give us a call at 832-861-7654. Until next time, stay outrageous, unreasonable, and relentless.